This video is just going to take you through a few final points about technique for answering the source question on the Germany paper. The key thing to remember is timing and planning is essential. You've got 45 minutes. Those of you who've got the extra time will have 56 minutes, but let's work on the basis of the 45 minutes. You must spend the first 8 or 9 minutes carefully and calmly reading the source and thinking through the key points and planning an answer. And then only after you've actually done that, and remember 8 or 9 minutes, do you actually start writing your answer. And when you write your answer, aim to write a 6-paragraph answer. So I'm just going to take you through the key points about this. I'm going to use the example here of a question that you're familiar with. Assess the value of source A for revealing the political goals of Friedrich Ebert and the problems facing the new Weimar Republic. The point is, remember that the question is always exactly the same question in terms of the wording, in terms of the actual task. So the bit of the second sentence there, it says explain your answer using the source, using the information given about its origin, that's what we call the provenance, and using your own knowledge about the historical context. So there are effectively 3 things that you're being required to do: using the source, and that's basically making inferences, think inferences. Secondly, the provenance, information given about its origin, and thirdly, applying your own knowledge. And remember, that is about precise additional knowledge. Okay, it must not be generalized knowledge, it must be very precise knowledge. And then you've got 2 lines of inquiry. Okay, so and that will always be the case. So the first line of inquiry is the political goals of Friedrich Ebert. That's A. And the second line of inquiry is the problems facing the new Weimar Republic. Okay, so you've got those elements. So we've done the lesson already on this, but just a quick reminder. You've got 6 main building blocks, therefore. Okay, so 6 building blocks for your answer. The first building block is the introduction. Now, with your introduction, remember, the most important thing, I'll write this in for you here, the most important thing is precise context. So look at the date of the source, and you've got to really focus and show the examiner in your introduction that you understand exactly what was happening at that time. Place the source into its context. So look at the date, think about what the source is saying, and then relate it to what was happening at that time. Think about what was happening immediately beforehand, and that may be the day beforehand, the week beforehand. Look at the precise date, and then what happened immediately afterwards. Again, so the week, the month maybe, but don't stray too far away from the actual time of the source. So that's important, the precise context. And then your first building block is evaluating the provenance of the extract, asking and answering questions about the author's authority and purpose. Okay, so the authority, remember, means, was the author in a position to know what they were talking about? So that's obviously thinking about the credibility of the source to the historian, to you. Can you actually rely on that information? Because the author was in a position to know what they're talking about, and the purpose, and that's obviously about trust. That's about bias. And remember, there's 2 types of bias. There's deliberate bias, and there's also unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is where the author may think they are talking the truth, but actually they have been influenced by other people, and they're not necessarily speaking the truth. So that's about obviously pulling out of the source what is credible and useful. And remember, when you talk about the provenance, never ever say that the source has no value. Okay, the source always has value. You're assessing. You're being careful about the source. You're sort of establishing which aspects are useful, and cutting away from it. Being cautious about looking at the limitations of the source, but reaching a judgment about what it is valuable for. But it will be valuable for something, and that's what you've got to talk about. And making use of additional own knowledge where relevant. You bring the own knowledge into that paragraph. Okay, then your next two building blocks is very much about the inferences. So it's the second building block. Look at the first area of inquiry, in this case the political goals of Hebert, and evaluate the credibility of the source by making inferences. Okay, so very important when you're making inferences that you use those keywords. What does it suggest? What does it infer? Try to avoid using that word shows. And then make sure you include precise, very short little quotes from the source. Okay, so back your inference up with the relevant part of the source, and then use your precise additional knowledge where relevant to substantiate these inferences. Then the third building block, you do exactly the same, but for the second area of inquiry. And then the fourth building block, you sort of pull back and you think, okay, about the comprehensiveness of the source. Does it give me everything I need to know to answer those the question about those two lines of inquiry? So the example here is the political goals of Hebert and the problems facing the New Republic. Are there any political goals that are not mentioned in the source? Are there any problems of the Weimar Republic that are not mentioned in the source? So think about, is the source narrow? Does it ignore something that I know from my own knowledge that is important? And then you pull it all together finally with the conclusion. Okay, so those are your 6 areas. So, coming back to the key point, timing is crucial. So this is the way I would actually approach this. Okay, so I would sketch out a quick plan on a piece of paper in the exam room. Okay, just literally divide your piece of paper landscape into 6 grids, exactly like that. And as you can see, that there are the 6 building blocks. Okay, so you've got your introduction, the provenance, the 2 sections for the credibility, the inferences, then you've got the comprehensiveness, and then you've got the conclusion. Read the source carefully, highlight and underline, picking out relevant points as you read the source. And then once you've read the source, quickly jot points into the different boxes of your plan. That process should take about 8 or 9 minutes. It can't take any longer than that. Okay, so but you absolutely must spend time thinking through what your building blocks are. Okay, so remember, in the introduction, you're going to put the precise contextual information. Then your thoughts about the provenance. Then you're going to just think through what are the sort of 2 or 3 key inferences for the first line of inquiry. What are the 2 or 3 key inferences for the second line of inquiry? What's been missed out for the comprehensiveness? And then what are you going to put? What are the key points in your conclusion? Just jot down buzzwords in each of those, and then you've got to think about the timing. Now, if you think about it, this is fairly obvious. Let's say you've got 45 minutes. You spend 9 minutes on the reading and the planning stage. That leaves you 36 minutes. 36 minutes, 6 boxes. That basically would be 6 minutes for each of those paragraphs. 6 minutes, you can actually write quite a lot of good information. So it's therefore crucial that you've got a watch on the desk, and you're keeping a close eye on the timing as you write your answer. That is really important. The timing is important. Now, it doesn't need to be exactly 6 minutes for each. So, for example, I would perhaps suggest that you spend 5 minutes on the introduction and 5 minutes on the conclusion. You don't need to spend quite as long on those. That gives you an extra couple of minutes, and maybe those sort of two areas there, the credibility of the source, where you've got to make the inferences, that's where maybe an extra minute for each could make the difference. So what this means is, if you plan it this way, you're going to be well paced. It also gives you the confidence when you walk into the exam room that what you need to avoid is this sort of rabbit in the headlights that can easily happen, where you look at a source and you think, where do I start? Okay, so you learn and remember this technique. First thing you do is just sketch out the 6 boxes, then carefully read the source, put ideas into the 6 boxes, and then 9 minutes into the exam, start writing your answer, and keep your eye on your watch as you write the answer. Don't spend any longer on each paragraph than you've allocated, and that way you will write a strong, well-structured, well-focused answer. Good luck, everybody. Hope that is helpful to you.